Episode 57, Fired Coaches Podcast. I believe this is the first episode of the 2026 year. And as I look back at my records, it is. What a better way to kick it off than a guy who I've known, which I don't know, we can actually talk about this at the start. I don't even know how long I've known you. I don't even remember when we first met. I'm guessing it's when you were at St. Norbert.
Yeah,
But Ryan Lallensack, and I've never even asked you how to say your last name. I'm assuming Lallensack is correct.
yeah. Lallensack, Ryan Lallensack is fine.
Lal. Lal.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's
that's
Lal,
correct.
not Lal. Why is there an A and not an O?
I, hey, I didn't create the name. Just it was I was given it at birth.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, Ryan has experience as college basketball player. Started his career, played 3 years at UW Oshkosh, and finished his last two at St. Norbert. Ended up getting into coaching. He's lived in Texas, coached high school basketball, did player development, coached at St. Norbert's as an assistant. St. Norbert, not St. Norbert's. There's no S on there. It's a classic thing for people who really hate that when you're from St. Norbert's.
Yep.
And then spent a few years at Waldorf in Forest City, Iowa before getting out of it. Has worked many years in the private sector. And yeah, Ryan Lallensack, thanks for being episode number 57 here on the Fire Coaches Podcast.
Yeah, Marcus, appreciate you having me. I know that when you started rolling this out, or the idea of rolling this podcast out, kind of tossing around, it had a negative connotation, right, with the fired coaches. Where was it going to go? Who are you going to have on? And what impact and what stories could you share that others could relate to or take and learn from? But again, you've had some quality people on. Some people I know very well, including Matt Lewis, Coach Buchanan, right, and some others. So I feel honored to be here and appreciate taking the time.
That's the most kindest words you've ever said to me. So this episode's already off to a great start.
Yeah, let's now that it's behind us, we can get to the real
Yeah,
stuff, right?
everything's downhill from now on. So you playing 3 years at Oshkosh, obviously we're still around with the redshirt era.
Yeah.
You redshirted. What did you learn in your redshirt year? Playing for Ted Van Dellen at UW Oshkosh.
Yeah, I think I'll say that's where my coaching kind of took off, right? As a red shirt, I mean, during the games, we were held accountable for tracking certain stats, right? You know, how we gap elbow, you know, how they were handling the screens. And then during halftime, we would take our clipboards and share it with Coach Gobbets and Coach Vandell and how they were handling us so we could make the adjustments in the second half. I mean, looking at that, it gave you a different insight from what you were doing in practice as a player and how you approached it. Just a different look, and giving that feedback, and then taking that feedback to the head coach and them implementing it, making those adjustments, and then having success. I mean, granted, at that time we had some really good players like Tim Dworick, who was an All-American, Nick Scherer, Scott Swinski, Elite Eight team. So just really appreciative of being able to be part of something so great like that. But on a small level, you're really getting into coaching, through that redshirt year.
Yeah, and was that 0304?
Yeah, yes, it would have been 0304.
So which was the last year of redshirting in Division Three.
Yeah.
How many guys did you have redshirt that year that you
Shoot,
remember?
yeah. Oh, we had a handful. Guys from Green Bay West, Green Bay Southwest, Green Bay Preble, guys from down in Milwaukee. I would say we had, between 5 and 7 guys, mostly guards, and a couple big fellas that end up going through the red shirt. You just obviously during games you kind of maybe cracking a couple more jokes because you don't have you're not getting into the game, but you're still looking at it through an analytical lens.
Yeah, obviously, and I think, obviously I'm a year younger than you coming in 04, 05. I do feel like getting rid of red shirt, at least from the college basketball standpoint, when you're in the state of Wisconsin with UWs, I do feel like had balanced things out quite a bit, right? There's still the technical gray shirts or whatever are out there where you can come to school and not necessarily practice and work out and all that stuff and save a year. But do you think like what was your feeling being a red shirt and now seeing it years later with it going away? Like, do you feel like there was an intense benefit there for schools that could do it?
Yeah, I certainly do, and I think there might be a misunderstanding of the skill level that's at a Division 3 level, right? Wisconsin Oshkosh Division 3, right? Kudos to Matt Lewis and those guys that have won, a national championship within the last 5-10 years there, right? Not easy to do, but the skill level at D3, the physicality of the game, completely different than a high school. And I know that's not even the D1 level, right? So in order to be able to step on the court as a freshman is more and more rare these days, right? It might be more or less rare now just due to the NIL money, people trying to get to a higher level to collect on that. But back when I was playing, you had some highly skilled guys that were out there, some tough guys. So it was not easy to step on the court, but the physicality of the game was completely different from the high school game. So I think that was a big reason why I chose to redshirt and learn the game. It's a different pace. The physicality of the game is completely different, but I think it's an opportunity for kids to capitalize on it and mature as well.
So you spent 3 years there, as we mentioned. You spent 2 years at St. Norbert to finish up, and you had played for, was it Paul DeNoble your junior
Yep, Paul
year?
and Noble.
And
Mm-hmm.
then Coach Gary Grzesk comes in your last year. Gary's obviously been there a long time now and done a great job. You, as a coach, were never fired. But what did you see in terms of a transition from a junior year playing for one person coming in, being the first part of Coach Gresh's tenure there? Like, what was that like to go through a change in scenery?
Yeah, I appreciated Coach Noble giving myself and Nate Zepnick, who transferred with me, an opportunity to play, right, and obviously continue our education. But I'll say he became he had success, and then maybe wasn't able to get the talent that he had. He had some guys transfer from was it UWGB, and then he had some local talent as well. That stuck around the area, and then I think a lot of the state schools end up capturing a lot of that talent. But unfortunate to see Coach DeNoble go. The change was, I mean, from day one, Coach Gresh came in with hey, we gotta build accountability, we gotta build a program, right? The way things were done aren't the way things are going to continue to be done in order for us to be successful. But I think the cool part about going through that transition, there was a handful or a couple of us seniors that actually got to sit in on the interviews. So like John Baines, who was at Elmhurst, and I believe he's still there, was one of the finalists. Coach Gresh, obviously, as well. We got to sit down in a room with them, ask them questions, what their approach to the practices were, what their philosophies were, and how they were going to help us, become successful as a program, not only in our final year there as a senior, but also going forward. And I mean, Coach Gresh has done a phenomenal job of establishing a culture and a program that has gone from day one forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So graduation, you finish up playing career, you moved down to Texas. You were living down there, working. You were coaching at, is it Ranchview High School?
Yeah, Ranchview. Yep.
How many years did you spend at Ranchview?
Yeah, I spent 2 years. So when I moved down there, I ended up playing in a couple pro-am leagues, in a couple other basketball leagues, and actually met a gentleman named D. Boyd, who is what I found out the head coach at Ranchview High School. And through conversation, he had just casually asked me to, hey, do you want to come help out? It's can't pay you, but donate your time. And I said, absolutely. And what I didn't know is I actually had a kid there named Naeem Stevenson, who was a junior. He ended up going to a JUCO in Florida and then Texas Tech. And when they made the tournament, I think as a junior, maybe senior year, he had a pretty good run for him. But they had a lot of good talent, but demographics were certainly different than what I was used to up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, or Manitowoc, Wisconsin. But a fantastic opportunity to learn how they were doing things, what it was like to being a coach, donating my time, and obviously, just investing in the kids for the future. But great opportunity, and that's, I'll say, the second time I really kind of found my opportunity within coaching to kind of grow and expand, and feel that passion to go beyond that, and then eventually reach out to Coach Gresh and come back home to St. Norbert to, I'll say, begin my coaching career at the collegiate level.
Yeah, so coming back and coaching at St. Norbert and then Waldorf, what do you feel like opened your eyes? And you were kind of just alluding to that a little bit there, but like being down in Texas, how much do
Yeah.
you think that changed your mindset from whether it was skill level of players, things that you were able to learn in helping 2 years? Like what do you think like helped you grow as a coach in person?
Yeah, I think when you step in as a coach, you have a different appreciation of the value of a possession compared to a player. As a player, you're out there, you're playing the game. Hey, your guy scores. Hey, I can get it back on offense. I can score. I can get a three, get the free throw line. As a coach, you start to really learn the value of a possession. I think I learned a lot of that from Coach Gresh, even from transitioning from high school to the collegiate level coaching. He's talking about keeping turnovers down, right? Maximize the possession when you have the ball. He's talking about, capturing offensive rebounds, extending offensive possessions. He's talking about getting stops on the defense, right? To limit their scoring. the possession and you're coaching on it. And I think if you would have taken that perspective as a coach and implemented it as a player, I think I would probably been a little bit better off as a player. But those that are doing it as a player now, man, you really see them shine.
That's awesome. So you come back into Coach Gresh's fourth year as you come back to Wisconsin. What was different in the program from when you left the program after his first year, your senior year? How much had things changed over 3 years?
Yeah, an established culture of winning, a winning culture, I should say, right? From getting after each other in practice, right? It's competitive on the floor. You're butting heads, right? You're getting after it, being aggressive. And then that transition into a bond like you've seen another, right? Guys had bonds off the court that really created a path for them to win on the court, right? I think you have to be great teammates off the court to be able to be great teammates on the court. And I really saw that established by Coach Grzesk and obviously the players when I came back. And then one thing I really picked up on from the older guys, which, transitioned to the younger guys, was we're going to win. The mentality of that we're going to win in a close game. You didn't have that fear of, are we going to put ourselves in a position? It's like, no matter what, we're going to find a way. And you end up seeing it quite often where guys would just make plays because they believed they were going to win. I think Coach established that from day one with his culture, and you saw it when I came back into the coaching.
How was it coaching guys you had played with?
I would say there's a line that you have to walk, right? Because at one point you were their teammate or their buddy, and now you're coming back looking at it and going, "Hey, I need to coach you," right? But if you have a mutual respect and understanding of each other's, I'll say, position, one as a coach, one as a player, I don't think you have any issues. I think if you also have the right personality kids, which Coach Grzesk and team, Coach Rohrig and those guys end up bringing in, were good quality kids that were coachable and being able to be developed. You don't have an issue with it.
What made the move from St. Norbert going to Waldorf, working for Nigel Jenkins, who had a previous relationship with Coach
Yeah.
Grzesk when they were at Lakeland together? You go to the big city of Forest City, Iowa.
Yeah.
What led to the move there?
Yeah, just an opportunity to grow in my coaching career, right? I was at St. Norbert, played at St. Norbert, and it was an opportunity to transition to an NAIA school where you could offer scholarship, right? I wanted to know what that life was like. Still a small school in a small city, right? But an opportunity to differentiate ourselves from like a D3 school where we could give them financial aid, right, for a basketball scholarship. But yeah, Coach Grzesk had a relationship with Coach Jenkins from Lakeland. As I was going through the process. He was a good, very strong advocate of mine, helping reach out, being a good contact for me. But yeah, great experience. I wouldn't change that process for anything. But still, it was really ultimately a chance to advance in my career.
So what led to you getting out? What was kind of your decision to step back, go full time work like you had done prior when you had moved down to Texas and things like that? And getting out of it, I guess, this is a large question, probably could take 30 minutes on it, but what do you miss and what don't you miss from being out of it?
Yeah, I would say, man, I'll kind of go back to the question about Waldorf and going to Waldorf there. Things I miss, I'll say the bond with the players, the development of the players, it's a little bit different from Waldorf to St. Norbert. St. Norbert's private school, so I guess Waldorf, but the background of the kids probably a little bit different financially, right? We're at Waldorf, maybe not. Some of the kids didn't have the financial means, but an appreciation and understanding of the family, or whether they didn't have family at all, where they were coming from, that connection and being somebody they could lean to for guidance, whether it was personal or what's my next steps beyond graduation. Those are the things I missed. And I wouldn't trade those for anything, right? But one thing I think has allowed me to propel in my professional career outside of it was when I got to Waldorf. Financial backing of programs was pretty limited, and obviously coming from St. Norbert, like many schools, even Oshkosh does it to this day, is a steak fry, right? Where they bring a bunch of people in and they donate to the program. They have raffles. Well, Forest City, Iowa, Waldorf, there we had a lot of kids from all over. We tried to get them from the Midwest, but we ended up having kids from all over. So doing a steak fry was not going to be an option, right? Small town. But what I decided to do was reach out to all my connections. I have a friend that played for the Cowboys. I knew Coach Chris Mack at the time, knew guys from North Dakota State, Matt Painter at Purdue. So I reached out to all my contacts and started to let them know what my plan was to establish an online fundraiser through, gathering signed material from them, basketballs, jerseys, helmets, you name it, and to be able to raise funds to be able to support the program. It was a successful venture I went down. I started with nothing and just asked the team, the players, just to give me emails, and I'll just email everybody and we'll start this fundraiser, local and friends of family. And we end up raising enough funds to be able to provide, a couple sets of gear, practice jerseys, 2 game shoes. And it just taught me that anything is possible, right? You surround yourself with the right people, right? You have a passion to do it and you put a plan together, you can go execute. And I think, yeah, coaching is one thing. I miss that, but I think what I learned through coaching has set me up to be successful beyond it.
Yeah, absolutely. What don't you miss about being outside of it?
The game has changed so much, right? I would say it's unstable in current state. I think it's headed in a good direction. With NIL, transfer portal. I think if they kind of dial that back, I think it becomes more stable. But I would say right now that'd be one thing I wouldn't care for. Right? You've seen a lot of coaches, quality coaches, getting out for that reason as well. Stress of family. You're always traveling, whether it's in season, out of season. Life on the road, long days, right? I think I've seen some quality coaches, from Northern Illinois and Drake and others that I've gotten to know over time that have stepped away for very similar reasons.
And obviously, you coached Jordan Nelson from the Neenah area at Waldorf. He was a
Yeah,
heck of a player. I remember recruiting him in high school. Did you coach Trey Scott as well too from Minnesota?
yeah. So while I was at Waldorf, we had 2 All-Americans, and one was Jordan Nelson, who was under recruited in the state of Wisconsin. I think maybe one other school, like you said, at Marion, but one other school was on him, and we took a chance, and he developed from a scrawny kid, a 6'7" kid, to an 2-time All-American, Player of the Year in the conference. And then, yeah, we had Trey Scott. Trey Scott was an interesting story. He plays half of a year his senior year and is an All-American, right? First team, I think he's a first team All-Conference kid. Just played in the conference season, his second half of the year, but had heart, determination. 5'10" kid, overlooked by the NSIC, from Minnesota. So, pretty unique, pretty remarkable story for a kid that played half the season to be an All-American. But um, he was fun to work with. Late nights, you want to get workouts, early morning. So, you put in the work, you'll see the results. Was always my comments to him, and he
Yeah.
truly did.
So I watched a high school game last night. Mosany and Rylander.
Yeah,
Rylander has a player who's very special in terms of being able to score the basketball.
yeah,
In the 12 years I coached in the countless AAU games and the high school games and everything that you watch, and I would put this kid in the top 5 percentile of being able to score the basketball just effortlessly. Fluid, bunch of different ways, off balance, inside, outside. And as I was thinking about this in the 12 years, I'm like, who's the only one that tops that is when I was at Superior my first year. Went to a lot of Robbinsdale Cooper games where
yeah,
Rodney Williams had played and played for the Gophers, and by far the most athletic kid I've ever seen play. But a couple of the games that I saw against Cooper when we were recruiting Cooper's point guard was Spring Lake Park and Trey Scott.
yep,
And Trey Scott I don't remember if he was a sophomore or a junior at that time. He wasn't quite a senior yet, but I was just like, this kid is unreal.
yeah,
Like he could just straight fill the basketball. And I remember years later, obviously him ended up at Waldorf. So, yeah,
yeah.
he was one of the most special, in terms of not being a Division two, Division one talent, but being like, okay, because he's small or whatever the knock on him may be, I'm like, he could just straight fill up the basketball.
Yeah, interesting, right? He was able to fill it up in high school, and he was certainly able to do it at the collegiate level for us at Waldorf. The one thing that he actually separated him from everybody else, his tenacity on defense, and that's why he became an All-American, right? He was 5'10", but what we would do is, one of the 3 guards that was out there, we put him on the best player, and he would lock him down. And it teaches a coach a lot about a player when they're willing to do that, right? It shows their toughness, their commitment to win, and all you tell me what to do, coach, I'll do it. And that was our conversation was, hey, we need you to lock people up. Offense will come, right? And it did. He turned defense into offense, which then springboarded the team to be successful as well. And then he'd get on a roll, hit some threes, a couple jump shots, get to the rim as well. But he always utilized his defense to set the tone, not only for him, but for the team. And then through that, it turned back into his high school career where he could score. And I think as a leader, or as a coach, that's what you want out of a leader is to set the tone. And he certainly did it day in, day out.
Absolutely. Not that you're getting back into it by any means.
Yeah.
But I know when you were out of the game and we connected down in Illinois, I think we saw Max
Yeah.
Christie play a game at a tournament. I was recruiting his teammate from Rolling Meadows or whatever. Um, but if you were to, like, let's say tomorrow you're going to go coach an NAIA or a Division three team, or even Division two for that matter. Let's say anything but Division one. You're going to go start your own program. What are some things that are core to you? Obviously, playing for Coach Van Dellen, playing and coaching for Coach Grzesk, working with Nigel for the couple of years at Waldorf. What are some things that like you feel like would matter to you in terms of running an organization?
Yeah. Have you ever watched the Coach K special and Roy Williams where they sit down in the gym and I think it's a high school gym and they have somebody kind of navigating a conversation. They ask both Coach K and Roy Williams. Have you seen that episode?
I have not, and I hope you're not comparing us to them. I hope that's not where you're
No,
going with this.
well, I certainly was. I won't let you pick which one I am, but they ask a very similar question. What do you look for in a player? And it, after listening to those guys, I think I would start with they talked about family, right? How those players treat their family or their mothers, right? Do they come from a good family? What I mean is, are they ingrained with their family? Do they love their family? How do they treat their family and their mother, right? I think I would start there, right? Because if they don't do that at home, how am I going to get them to do that with me on the court, right? So I'd start there, look for tough players that are committed to defense, right? But I think I would need to start. I think you'd need to have your offensive guys. You can always teach defense, but it's tough to take a guy that can't shoot, that's really good at defense, and make him a shooter, right? So you got to have your balance. But I think you gotta set the tone from day one with a strong culture. Find your core, right, or what you're going to establish, but be flexible enough to adapt the kids. But I think I would start with good family kids. You'd have to have a combination of tough kids on defense and then kids that can score it and you can teach defense too. And then high basketball IQ, I think, is got to be in there, right? If they understand the game, they understand how to screen, they understand how to move without the basketball, they can score, they can read all that in the flow of the game. I think you're in a much better situation. And then, just depending where you're at, right? You got to be successful where you're at. You got to understand what draws kids in. You got to understand your negatives about your school and turn those into positives when you're recruiting. Like at Forest City, the one thing that we told every recruit before they got to campus was we're a small school in a small town. So if that isn't your cup of tea, we understand, we appreciate it. You got to be upfront with kids because when they get there, they're certainly going to see you're a small school in a small town. Why waste their time? Why waste yours? But you got to understand where you're at and how you want to recruit to it because you're not going to attract the same kids everywhere, nor probably at a D1 school or is your recruiting approach going to be the same because you have access to flights in and out, right? How are they going to connect? Where are their parents going to fly in and out of for games? That all plays a part into the recruiting. And obviously I would love to say I have NIL money to be able to give, but I didn't coach in that era. So.
For sure. You and I will text from time to time on some deep thoughts or conversations, and just wondering your thoughts on, some of these topics that I kind of came up with. Obviously, we both coached at small colleges. Like you mentioned, times have changed, obviously, within the college realm, especially at the higher level. But what I've noticed from being on the outside is, and I don't think this is, just the old guy on the porch screaming at the clouds kind of thing or get off my lawn. But I do think there's a real difference of like, you coaching high school basketball, coming back to St. Norbert, getting into it, wanting to go and advance. Same thing with myself. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, I see nowadays where I feel like there's less and less kids that are doing that, where it's, not as many kids that are willing to go just, which I guess maybe where we were idiots for doing it, making low
Yep.
money and you're trying to like get an experience. But I just feel like nowadays it's more so like, well, what's in it for me? Like, what am I going to be able to get paid to be able to survive?
Yeah.
And, I guess in terms of the game and like growing the game specifically from like a coaching standpoint, like what are your thoughts? And, again, I know we didn't really talk much about like prepping about this, but it's just more so off the cuff. Like, what are your thoughts with like growing the game in terms of getting coaches, whether it's, high school guys,
Yeah.
because obviously that in Wisconsin has changed over a lot with head jobs in the last few years, or just small college guys that are just trying to get into recruiting experience, scouting, coaching on the floor to kind of stay in it long term, and dive into it.
Yeah. That's all.
And that's a loaded question, right?
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to unpack. But I think I'll start with this, right? And this is because I'm biased, right? I've had to go through it. I know you did. Coach Dave Buchanan, who I have a ton of respect for, that's made it to the D1 level, certainly has gone through it. But I think in order to understand what it takes to be a coach, right, and all the ins and outs, I think you have. My opinion is you start at a small school, right? You're the ops guy, you're the laundry guy, you're maybe the JV coach, you're doing the meals, you're doing everything, right? You're going out on the road after a JV and varsity practice, driving 4 hours, recruiting, and then driving 4 hours back. Got to come home, pack everybody's stuff up because you leave at 6 a.m. the next day or 7 a.m. the next day, may not get any sleep. I've got plenty of stories like that where Coach Jenkins will get on the bus from Waldorf at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. and I look at him and I said, "I'll see you in a few hours," and I just crashed because I was doing laundry after a long night of recruiting and getting everybody's jerseys and shoes and everything prepped for them to make sure that the bags were packed so nobody forgot everything because that happened before I got there, right? So you just go above and beyond, but it'll show your head coach and other coaches how committed you are to not being successful for yourself, but making sure that everybody else and the program is successful, right? Because you got to think through everything that's outside of you before you actually think about, do I have my shoes for the game? Do I got my suit? Do I got my tie, right? You do everything else because you can coach without a suit. The guys can't play without their jersey, shoes, everything else, right? So I think it kind of humbles you and makes you give back to others before you give back to yourself. But I think that's where I would start is coaches should be experienced at that because I think I saw a tweet the other day. Oh, I guess I experienced it in my personal life because I was down in El Paso when the airport shut down and my travels were impacted. And I saw some tweets out there about even Doug Gottlieb from UWGB made a tweet about it. But feel bad for the ops guy or ops guy is going to be busy today rebooking flights. I'm like, you guys have no idea what it's like to coach at a small school where you're booking hotels, you're doing you're figuring everything out, but trying to figure out a flight that got delayed and how to get to a game. Like that's peanuts on it, right? Like you'll make it happen, but I think that's at a foundational level. I think that would be great for everybody to experience everything that a small school or even a high school coach has to do because they do the same.
Yeah, it's interesting because like you're spot on, right? And I had one a phone interview at one point in my career at the scholarship level with an ops position, and it's even though I feel like they knew what small coaches do as an assistant specifically, right? You do everything like you were just mentioning with laundry and meals and hotels and make sure this guy didn't forget his shoes because he forgot them the last time and whatever else it is,
Yeah.
right? I think it's at times it's almost hard to sell what that entire experience is because if you haven't been at that level,
Yeah.
you don't know like what that person does, right? Is they just making it up, or is that actually something that they went through? And I agree. Like obviously working at the small level, like when I worked for Coach Buchanan, my first couple of years at Superior and Carroll, like his whole mantra was that it's a D1 experience at the D3 level, and it was from top to
Yeah.
bottom. And if I didn't see that, I don't know what my experience would be. It's kind of go
Yeah.
hindsight's 2020, but like honestly, I don't know what it really would have been. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like, yeah, that's the way to go. And I feel like in the future here, like I don't know if something has to change from a pay standpoint or whatnot, because I feel like the way that it's been, like a lot of these schools, right? Like I don't think, and again, I've been out of it for 6 years now, but I don't think a lot of these
Yeah.
schools are necessarily spending more money on their coaches' salaries, especially when some of these schools are maybe struggling from an enrollment standpoint or budgetary standpoint. But it's like, in terms of, and like maybe it's like what you said, maybe it's the steak fry. Like maybe everybody's just got to take more of a fundraising arm on and figure it out themselves. But to be able to get people in, to get them an experience to help out, even the high school level, right? Because budgets there, I think, like have gone down
Yeah.
over time too.
Yeah.
You got to find a way because eventually, it's going to be far and few between. Like you'll still have your people applying for your head jobs and your full-time assistants, but it's those people who come in as the stipend ones or the volunteers, as you were mentioning earlier too. Like, hey, come get an experience at Ranch View. That's important for kind of growing the game as well too. So just kind of some stuff I've been thinking about, along with youth sports.
Yeah.
Which again, I don't know if we have enough time in the podcast here. I'll probably throw some rocks at my computer screen talking about that. But you know, what do you think, is an appropriate level for, you have a kid, you sports
Yeah.
wise, like what's kind of your plan in terms of getting them going, and what do you feel like is appropriate for young kids? My stance is I don't think, I have a daughter. She's, in grade school, but I literally get extremely worn out. I'll be honest with you, whether it's coworkers, family members, friends that are telling me about their kid who just won state basketball at the fourth grade level. I don't care. Like this is going in one ear and out the other. And so I just, I'm a firm believer that you let your kids be kids. If they want to do a camp, if they want to go and do a YMCA thing, cool. But in terms of travel stuff, like I really think, until you get in a fifth, sixth grade, I don't think that there's really a necessary, um, a place for that. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think, your role as a parent isn't to guide your kid to something. It's rather to create and give them experiences. Therefore, they can make the determination of what they want to do, how they want to do it themselves, right? At a young age, give them as exposure to as many things, band camp, music, basketball, football, soccer, whatever it is. Create that exposure for them and that experience and see what they gravitate towards and support them. Don't support your own desires. I think those parents that kind of do some things and get a little extreme are more about themselves and the spotlight that they may receive or the feeling that they may get as a result of the success of their kid. That's not what youth sports or in general youth your childhood is about, right? I certainly appreciate my parents not doing that with me, right? Obviously, we had limited financial, right? Not that we were in a bad situation, just didn't have means to be able to go do everything. But they allowed me to experience things and make my own determination and gravitate towards what I liked. In fact, I would say that scolding me when I wanted to stop playing baseball in sixth grade because they felt the exposure that I was getting to other kids and friends and things like that was great for me, right? Instead of going down to two sports or even one my senior year, right? So, um, I would, I would, I don't know what a great age to start that is, right? I certainly think that it's better to create experiences and let your kid kind of guide it. Now, there's a balance in that you can't give them everything and anything they want, but I think being able to understand like what a great experience is for them and start there and then slowly, start local, right? Not every kid is going to be an All-American. Not every kid, wants to go play at the collegiate level. I know some fantastic high school players that wanted nothing to do at the collegiate level because they just didn't want to go play college sports. They were okay with being a great high school athlete and they wanted to move into a skilled trades after high school and start making money, which is fine.
Man, just so well put. That's a lot better than me. I give you
Yeah,
give you kudos on that.
yeah. I mean, I think about it a lot, right? And I mean, let's be honest. There's money in sports and in youth sports, right? From professional all the way down to the youth, right? And when money becomes the number one talking point, a lot of what the focal point should be is the kids themselves gets overlooked, right? including skill development. I think we don't allow kids to fail, right? That gets overlooked because money's involved. So I'm going to go put him on a different team where he can go win and be the best player. It things start to shift quite quick. But I mean, the experience of the kids and kids just being kids is often overlooked these days.
Absolutely. I guess to finish up, how do you get better as a person, a leader in your company? You're obviously traveling all over, like you were mentioning about the old El Paso shutdown. We were on the phone
Yeah.
that day when that was happening because I woke up to a tweet and I'm like, actually, I just texted this guy and he told me he's down in El Paso, trying to get the juice on what's going on so I could be a news story guy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, how do you get better on a whether, week to week or month to month basis?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I'll say I'm confident, but I'm a humble person. And what I mean by that is I'm confident in my abilities, but I also know my weaknesses. The people that are around me are all people that are better in areas that on my weakness, right? So I have friends that are strong in, I'll say in construction, right? It's not my strongest suit, but I bring them around so I can learn. There might be people in my life that are better on the sales or financial side, so I keep them when I talk to them. I'm talking to them about that so I can learn and continue that friendship. And then sports, right? So I keep a good balance of people around me, good quality people. But I'm always learning from people around me. Um, I'm having conversations when I'm traveling for work. I earlier or late last year, I was on a plane and struck up a conversation to the gentleman next to me, and we're talking about work and what he did, and he was in logistics, and we were going back and forth, and through conversation, found out he had a little hobby farm. Right, that hobby farm is thousands of acres, and next thing you know, I find out that that gentleman's the owner of Benor Logistics. Right, never came across as a high, a president or owner of a company, but certainly took a lot of information from him through that conversation. So I would say it starts with the people, the engagement there. I'm always learning from somebody, but then I read. I have a lot of sales books or negotiation books or self improvement books. And I think one of the best ones I've ever read was probably Never Split the Difference by
Chris
Chris
Voss.
Voss. Yep. Fantastic read, right? Um, it's about compromise or lack thereof, right? Because obviously his experience as a hostage negotiator, right? You split the difference and you have two hostages, right? You could end up with one dead, right? So you want to be careful on your compromise, but you want to understand the why behind the ask, right? So you can get to the true understanding, so you can create resolution, right? I think that's a fantastic read, and the world today, if you're good at problem solving, good at negotiation, you're going to be successful in life, right? It's always about building a solution to create a win.
It's funny you bring that up because I was going to ask you when you said negotiation. When I was at my last company in training development, I actually did a presentation on that to a bunch of our leaders, and how our previous or the company I worked at was very big on to salespeople, like asking why like 5 times, like really digging into the why.
Yeah,
Where Chris Voss is like, well, you should use what and how. You shouldn't use why because why is like when we grow up, you're used to your parents going, why did you do that? Why this, why that? It's got a negative connotation, and there's so
yeah,
much in there that I thought was really interesting that, like you said, you can use it for anything. It's not just like a negotiation. It's like, once we get off this call, it's a Friday night, we're probably going to get fish being good Catholics here, but I'm, going to talk to my wife while we're doing for dinner. And there's a way that I can negotiate with her
yeah,
in just subtle words, right? And it's just kind
yeah.
of messaging. And so that's a great book and probably a top 5 read that I've had in my
Yeah.
life. And I think for anybody,
Yeah, it's really about psychology, right? You go back to understand humans, how they think, how they operate, right? You're gonna navigate the world in a better way, right? You're gonna be successful, right? If you don't know how to navigate people, understand the psychology of it, you're gonna struggle because you're always dealing with people in some way, shape, or form. Whether you're a consumer, whether you're a buyer, whether you're going to a basketball game, no matter what it is, there's a lot out there um, that you're gonna have to navigate in the human realm.
yeah, well, my man, we've been on this for almost an hour here. Appreciate you jumping on here. Episode 57. I think there was 3 different times that we were going to do this, and you backed out every single time. So I'm glad you finally showed up to this one. I'm going to have to make sure that this gets saved and doesn't get deleted because I know it probably won't happen again. So Yeah, appreciate you jumping on the Old Fire Coaches podcast here.
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me. Right, there's a lot of pressure. I mean, you've had some very quality people kind of give their stories, right, their experiences, their journey, and even where they're at now, right. And I think I won't say I'll try and outdo them, right. I just hope I add some value to somebody's day when they're listening to this.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate it, bud.
Thanks, Marcus. Appreciate.